Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 53. This is Bennett, and in this episode I asked Daniel the hard question, the question that I know everyone has been wanting me to ask him. What do you think about birds? Yeah, we talk about birds. I don't know why, it was just on my mind, and so we discuss birds for a little while. And then we get to another topic. In past episodes, we've discussed what the world would be like if we had some technological revolution in a particular area. For example, we've talked about teleporters, machines that could replenish your sleep, or the ability to communicate telepathically. This time, I ask about what the world would be like if we invented a nutritional pill that contained all the calories and nutrients that a person needs in their normal diet, and it was cheap and readily available and easy to manufacture. How would that change the world? And it sounds like it would be a totally positive, amazing thing that would eliminate world hunger, but we ask, would there be any negative effects to this pill? How would things change? Anyway, it was an interesting discussion, and I hope you will all enjoy it as well.
Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Welcome.
Daniel, hello.
Hi.
What do you think about birds?
I like their sounds for the most part, unless they're a woodpecker or a screechy type bird. I find it really pleasant. I associate them with morning on a walk, and you're like, oh man, the air is crisp, the birds are chirping. I said,
with
death,
morning?
did you say?
You said with morning, so like
In the morning, the daytime, or early morning.
After people die, and you're sad.
Soon after people die, the early morning stage, you know. And I find them. I think culturally we really like. Each state said we gotta have one, you know. People really care, I suppose. But as far as a pet, I have absolutely no desire. I mean, I like the idea of me being some sort of animal whisperer, and I go out and I go, and they land on my hand, and I look at you and I kind of pet you, and then you fly off. But I don't really want a pet as a bird as a pet, excuse me. And I have no desire for that. Putting them in a cage seems kind of sad anyway, so they're just limited. They just are more of background noise for me. This pleasant existence, but as soon as it's hey, will you take care of me or buy me a cage? No, that's how I feel.
All right, well, those are some good thoughts on birds. I didn't have much. I don't know. I was just thinking about birds recently. You know, sometimes you just think about
thinking
birds.
about birds, yeah.
And I was just thinking about how much variety there is in birds. I mean, I guess they're their own category of the animal kingdom, so you would expect some amount of variety. But you got your hummingbirds, you got your geese,
you got your hummingbirds, your ducks, your geese.
Yeah, ducks. You got eagles. You got ostriches. They're different. You got flamingos. Think about all the different kinds of penguins. If an alien came to Earth and we showed them 10 different birds, maybe some of the ones that I listed, they wouldn't even think they're the same animal necessarily.
Our classification system might be a bit. We just go, birds. It's just sort of this word, very umbrella term. If you're putting penguins and brown thrashers in the same category,
platypus.
You know.
I know that there are biological markers for what a bird is. You know, they lay eggs, they don't have milk.
Is their bone density have anything to do with it?
They have hollow bones. Maybe some maybe like ostriches. I'm sure they have similar bone structures.
Like the penguins
birds.
really have lighter bones, really? I mean,
I think so.
Interesting.
I think so. I could be wrong.
So they can waddle in a light fashion? I don't know.
Oh, well, it's probably just it's a bird
penguins
thing.
Fly, don't they? Do some penguins fly? They don't fly at all.
I mean, the common one that you picture, doesn't fly. There may be some goofy, subspecies of penguin that can fly really lamely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about the variety of birds, and like you mentioned, exactly. I was thinking, wow, it's kind of crazy that every state has, a state bird. Like we got 50 birds at least. Although the states,
why did we decide that was important enough? Like, hey, you're a state. What do you want? I want a brown thrasher. I'm Georgia. I call the brown thrasher. Like,
I know,
what made us
that's what
all decide a bird was worthy of saying that's my thing?
That's what I was thinking too. Like a lot of the birds that they pick are kind of lame. Like you don't get the super variety of birds. I guess I can't say that for sure since I don't know all the state birds. But like,
Yeah, I cannot.
does
name
any state have
birds.
the flamingo, or does any state have the
Florida?
eagle?
I'm sure, right?
Does it? Does
I don't know.
They should. That should.
They
be Florida's
absolutely
state
should.
bird. And like the goose is real distinctive, although that's Canada's state bird, probably.
State bird for Canada.
If it's not, it should be. It's weird how geese are such jerks and Canadians are, just not really. Like, it doesn't seem
Yeah.
a very appropriate state bird for Canada.
I'm looking up a state bird list, and Florida is the northern mockingbird.
See, that's lame. That's just not. I mean, mockingbirds, they're fine. They can make different noises and all, but they're no flamingo.
I mean, we're talking about wrens, mockingbirds, quails. I'm scrolling just
Yeah,
to see if there's
no.
You're right. It's like, I mean, you got a cardinal, which is kind of cool, but it's
That's
just such a.
fine.
When
A
you said birds, I went directly to what we're describing here. It's just, what you see outdoors.
Where's the blue-footed booby? Which state is blue-footed booby? And penguin has to be on there. Turkey deserves a spot. I think cardinal deserves a spot on the top
Cardinal
50.
is cool. Yeah, I agree with you.
But not the top 10.
The Rhode Island is the Rhode Island Red, which is the sort of a turkey. I mean, a hen, a rooster of sorts.
Oh, okay. So that's good. That's an
Yeah.
appropriate bird.
And South Dakota is the red-necked pheasant. So that's
that one
interesting.
doesn't fit. That one's not good enough. A
good
parrot.
enough.
A parrot deserves to be on there.
Yeah, none of that. Everything else, pretty much. I mean unless Utah's state bird is the California gull.
Come on, Utah.
Come on, Utah.
What are you doing?
Have some identity. Like, you chose the California gull as your state bird. I just
Goodness. Utah, get it together.
I mean, at least like South Carolina is the Carolina wren.
Yeah, I mean that's probably what they probably pick a bird that's common in in their state, which I get, state pride and so on. But like, no, just don't.
Well, that's why they choose birds in the first. It's just like what makes our state unique. We have the most of, and so that's what you. I mean, yeah, but nah. I'm
But it's a
thinking
lie.
mascot wise.
It's a lie,
you're
like
right.
Rhode Island. Do they have a bird that's really more common in Rhode Island than in other states? No, they don't. Like the New England states, no.
It might be
they
the
don't.
same bird for all of them, even.
Yeah.
Oh, Texas and Tennessee both have the northern mockingbird. How boring is that?
Come on, Texas is supposed to be independent. Texas is supposed to be like their own country, in heart and soul, and they're stealing the bird from Tennessee.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? These names might sound kind of neat, like the Oklahoma's scissor-tailed flycatcher, and it's
I
just
like
a bird.
that. That's
It's
a
just
good name.
Yeah, it is scissor-tailed flycatcher, but it is a boring-looking bird.
It's gonna
or the
suck to be-
Mariana fruit dove. It's kind of exotic, but
It's
I'm
gonna
just
suck
saying.
to be the scissor tail flycatcher or whatever you said, because when you introduce yourself, or when you turn in a resume or whatever, and you say, "Oh yeah, I'm scissor tail flycatcher," everyone's like, "Oh man, that's awesome," and then you show up and you're just a freaking bird. Like,
yeah.
what a life.
Just letting people down because the best part already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also kind of crazy with birds. Just parrots. The ability that birds have to speak is pretty fascinating too. Compared to literally all other animals aside from humans, right? Like no other animal can do that. Can speak. They're obviously not comprehending what they're saying. They're just
But they're
mimicking
speaking
the
a
sounds.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but they are mimicking very complex vocal patterns, which is pretty wild. Or I guess not domestic, whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it seems so civilized.
So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Birds.
I think we said that right at the same time.
So you wouldn't want a bird as a pet?
Well, now that you've expanded, I was just trying to go with what you said and went to the boring birds. And yeah, I do not want a bird as a pet.
What if instead of your classic caged bird, parakeet or whatever, you know how you have inside dogs and outside dogs? What if you have inside birds and outside birds, and this bird just was, lived outside, maybe it's a hawk or something awesome like that, and it would go do its thing, and then when you come outside, you go, you whistle. I can't do a good whistle. You do a good hawk whistle, and it would come like perch on your shoulder,
land on your leather glove that you have.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, leather glove or whatever, and and you could feed it a anchovy or whatever you feed those things, and
okay, I take it back. You've convinced me. I would totally take a hawk as a pet outdoors. Or in all seriousness though, like I don't actually want pets, but if I imagine I have some property or even in an apartment complex, and if I were to walk outside and start to like see an animal regularly, and we develop the sort of relationship, and maybe I even occasionally left it a treat or something, and I'm just like, oh, there's my buddy. I'd probably be inclined to give that animal a name, and therefore
what would you name
my pet,
a pet hawk?
Ferris, maybe.
Ferris. Okay. That's a name. That's a name.
Well, I think when you're asked to name an animal, you go a couple of different routes. You can go like if you say dog, you can go with the like Spike or like Duke or I guess just
Thomas.
Dog non-human names, or you can go the human name route. Is my point. What'd you say?
Thomas.
No, that's my point. Is like it's kind of funny to give a human name to a dog. Or an animal, like
Thomas Richardson Sr.
Yeah, give it a first, middle, last. Give it maybe a title, like the Earl of whatever. And that's funny. Maybe. So I don't know names, whatever. But I like the idea of like, oh, I spot a little nest in a tree outside, and then I see the baby birds and I name them. I once had a duck that I had named Martha outside of an apartment complex, and she had her eggs, and she would just sit there on them every day.
That's nice. How's she doing?
She didn't do too well. One day her eggs all got eaten. She was a pretty bad mom. I saw her as being kind of cracked out. She looked like she'd seen better days. She was like had been in some scuffles and was tattered and like and sometimes she would
out.
just. Yeah, she was quacked out. But yeah, I named her Martha, and we sometimes like I remember Danielle looked up like because you're not supposed to feed them breadcrumbs for some reason. I think it gets big in their stomach and they feel like they're full and then they don't eat or something weird like that. But there are some other common household items or foods that you can feed them, and it's not a big deal. So we'd occasionally give her some. Anyway, Martha. I don't think she fared too well. And then one day after the eggs were all destroyed, she just was gone.
Yeah.
Probably died.
Probably hung herself.
Probably hung herself. Yeah. Yeah.
I have another thing to talk about aside from birds today. In past
10 minutes of birds. It's not our best. Like I'll just say it. But I like it.
I don't know. There's nothing wrong with birds.
Some
people are like bird watchers, and that's like their thing.
It's a whole thing. They don't even have bird pets. They just look at them.
They just go out and look at them, and maybe
how much do you identify with that?
Pretty.
I've talked about
pretty not.
Yeah, me too. So here's the thing. I've told you that, like, okay, and I always go to this one example, and I don't know why. I made it up a long time ago, and I've stuck with it. But, like, if someone's a master of their craft, I'm interested in talking to them. For instance, knitting. I don't care about knitting, but if someone was the best knitter in the world, I want to talk to them about their passion and their craft and, like, all of that. But if you were to tell me you have the opportunity to talk to the world's most renowned bird watcher, I might not want to, honestly.
I was gonna jump on board with your point, but I think I agree with that last bit there. Like, yeah, if you're the most renowned at something in the world, then you're definitely gonna get 5 minutes of my attention. It doesn't matter what the subject is. But there are some subjects where even if you're the best in the world, you're just not gonna get much more than 5 minutes of my attention. Some things, if you're the best in the world, you'll get infinite of my attention. I'll just never stop asking questions about it. Like if you're the world's foremost F1 car mechanic, then like I'm going to be asking you a ton of questions. Or like if you have dived the deepest in the ocean or something, then I'm just going to ask you tons of questions. But if you like are the world's foremost ballroom dance teacher, like I'm not going to ask you 5 minutes. I'll be like, oh, so you like dancing? Oh, how is it different from like other dancing? Oh, have you heard of birds? What do you think about birds? That's going to be...
That's what you come up with after 5 minutes. Like, so, birds?
That's going to be my path. That's going to be my thought path with them.
So, now, see, even ballroom dancing, well, first of all, I guess it's like, are they an interesting person, too? Because they could talk about ballroom dancing in a fascinating way, right? And then, like, how many hours did it take you? And where did you learn your lessons? And where do you get your, grit? And what patterns have been successful for you? What do you do when you don't want to ballroom dance, but it's going to, in order to achieve excellence, there's sacrifice. Like all of those things could be commonplace for whoever's the best at the tippy top of their field. But I feel like a bird watcher is just going to tell me about the
So how many birds have you seen?
The scientific name and be like, oh, actually, Logopus logopus, Coloptes auratus, or something like Camphilora nancas brunicipalius. And I don't care, some Latin, and tell me that I just, first of all, in order to be the best, you just went out looking a lot. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of joking. And maybe I have to travel to exotic locations and sit still for hours. And I'd be interested in anyone willing to sit still for hours. What sort of discipline does that take? So I'm kind of joking, but I don't want to talk about birds that long. I don't know. Like for some reason that doesn't do it for me, man. I found something I'm not that interested in, and it might be birds.
Yeah, I'm not that interested in it either. I'll tell you one of the reasons why it was on my mind is because I was talking to a girl, and that was her interest, was bird watching. And predictably, this conversation didn't go very far because I was just like, oh wow, so kind of like a Pokédex, you like keep track of all the birds you've seen. Yeah.
Do you have like binoculars? Oh
yeah,
you do.
I did ask that. You hit that one.
Super nice. Oh,
and I asked if she took pictures of the birds, and she said no because her phone. They're hard to take pictures of on your phone, and she didn't have a fancy camera. And I was like, oh, okay.
Cool.
So all right. What about ballroom dancing?
What's that? That was good.
Well, no, I just couldn't think of anything else to say, and I didn't.
I mean,
really
you asked
find
them, what's the craziest bird you've ever seen, and they say, oh, the flycatcher snail.
Yeah, the scissor-tailed flycatcher.
Yeah, scissor-tailed flycatcher. Good for you. And you go, that sounds cool. They're like, yeah, it's just, it's got 2 wings.
It looks like a bird. And, it's got a beak.
Got a beak.
Lays eggs.
Oh, but the beak, traits. It's got like this point, and it kind of curves. It's like crazy. You wouldn't believe the color.
They have speckled down. They have speckled.
I bet I would.
Speckled down. I mean, do you understand? Extended tail feathers. Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the extension on those tail feathers. I bet I would. I bet it's very believable.
Anyway, 17 minutes on birds. Getting it done, baby. Getting it done.
It's almost like a challenge. Like, introduce a boring topic or one that we don't care about, and we're still gonna do it for 17 minutes.
So in past episodes, we've talked about what would the world be like if some revolutionary technology were introduced. So we did like teleporting refrigerators, remember, or teleportation that were the size of refrigerators. We did a machine that essentially performs the function of sleep for you. I think we did telepathic communication. I have one for you this time that I want to imagine that maybe on the surface doesn't seem that revolutionary, and well, maybe under the surface isn't that revolutionary either, but I still want to discuss it with you.
Okay.
It is, what if we were to invent a nutritional pill that gives all the calories that you need, all the nutrients that you need in just a single pill, and it was very cheap, just a few cents, easily manufacturable, no side effects, no taste. So essentially this is just the food problem, the nutrition problem taken off our plate. Well, I guess literally taken off our plate. what,
elimination of world hunger like comes to
yeah,
mind.
like what happens? And obviously, there's some obvious pros, but I want to, a lot of these technological revolutions you think of as, getting you one step closer to utopia, but then actually, if you think about it a little bit more in depth, maybe there's some drawbacks you didn't imagine. And so, that's the premise of a lot of sci-fi and everything. I was wondering with the nutrition pill if you could think of any. We can talk about the obvious pros, but are there some other things too that might be negative that we're not thinking of?
Yeah, man. I almost, in order to get to the negative, I feel like I have to just
Yeah,
talk
let's do
through
it.
some of the positives.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because that's just my mind goes to a couple of things. I mean, I think, I don't know why my mind went here so quickly, but in terms of food stamps, it's just like, no, here's your pills. And for my
Oh yeah,
mind, can we
sure.
just say it's like a pill a day, and
Yes,
that's your nutritional,
that's what
and
I was
this is
imagining.
printed for, or these are made for pennies. So like,
Yes, that's
you can
exactly what I was
literally,
imagining.
yeah, okay. And so obviously you could ship it to, in third world countries or whatever the appropriate term is for that, and like keep people like, so there's a lot of good that comes out of that. And then yeah, like in terms of why have food stamps, it's just, here is this, and
Yeah, there would be no food stamps anymore.
there wouldn't be a need for that. And I don't even know if the term food stamps is antiquated. It's just like EBD cards or whatever.
I mean,
right?
you could make a very solid argument that even in our current time, there's no need for food stamps. So I think that would be my argument. In fact, that we don't need food stamps. Like
Right.
we already have cheap calories that we can give people in the form of rice and beans or military rations or whatever. So
And this might be a little too silly in the thought experiment here, but like you said, it's nutritionally complete.
Yes.
In some ways, is it like the healthiest freaking thing you can do? So if I were to work out and just eat this, it'd be like I'd be in the prime physical condition of my life. Like I couldn't do better. I couldn't order supplements and greens and things
no,
like that to be better.
I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, different bodies have different needs. This is just sufficient. So it's all your necessary calories, and there's some amount of magic to it, obviously, but appropriately divided between fats, carbs, and proteins or whatever, and all the nutrients. Now, if you're going to be a bodybuilder, you probably still need to eat additional protein.
So let's, before we get to the extreme ends, like the soup. So I guess we'd already addressed the extreme ends. Poor people that are literally going hungry that's solved, and that's fantastic, because now all of a sudden you have people potentially in the workforce that weren't, or have the energy, or the people that this brings them up in some way, and so hopefully they can contribute more and participate more in society now that they're healthier. Yay. But what about the average person who can afford food as it is?
Yeah.
And like I
Well,
could save some money. Like I could during the weekdays I might just choose to take this pill. And then on the weekends it's a luxury. I go out and I eat at a restaurant. It
Yeah,
becomes
that's
extra
what
special.
that was one of my questions. Like in this world where nutritional pills are widely and cheaply available, what happens to restaurants? What happens to restaurants and grocery stores in this world?
Yeah, I think, well, one thought I had is that if you're solving world hunger and it's all this good, so you can see the story arc, but it starts to be seen as like the peasant pill, and it's like, ew, and then so ironically we might become a little more gluttonous because it's a status symbol potentially, or I'm gonna go experience life instead of just this gross little like.
Is there
nothing.
anything else like that
Um,
that that has actually happened?
no, I'm just well, possibly.
I'm genuinely asking if you can think of anything.
Are you
Like
saying because it's just such an unrealistic prediction?
Yeah, I'm just
I
thinking
think
like
it is
what
unrealistic and that it would be shunned. I just think that you, in some ways, make restaurants like food now becomes this option instead of this necessity. And when it's an option, you have emphasized the luxurious nature of it, because I think we love tasting food. It's what we do to socialize primarily. Like there's intimacy in breaking bread with one another. Going out to eat is what you do on a date night. It's the weekend. Let's splurge. Let's go to a restaurant.
So
Even when you and I travel together, it's like food is like one of my favorite things, and it's like how you understand cultures and all of this. So I don't think that goes away.
Well, so how about this for a comparison? Flying, right? Like it used to be the rich only and luxury, right? Like, and you could smoke and everyone wore suits and everything when they were flying.
Cute
on
stewardesses.
planes. Yeah, right. And now, well, now it's different, right? Now, as you said, it's for the peasants, right? And everyone, or many people fly.
Cattle car in the air, yeah.
Yeah, it's a flying bus. And people still do it, right? Even the rich people still do it. Yeah, maybe they have their private flights if they're real rich. And then they have the token first class, which is still, sardines in a can, basically. So, like, it seems to me like that's a technological improvement where everyone just bought in, right? And, we don't have special luxury flights, not really. At least not at the level that I would imagine, if we had the nutrition pill, we would still have restaurants around. Do you think that's an apt comparison, or do you think there's a difference because eating food is such a distinct experience from taking a pill?
I think it's such a distinct, I think I'm tempted to say in this hypothetical that there'd be you could almost be like, no more fat people. I actually think there'll be the exact same amount of fat people. I don't think one fat person.
That was one of my questions. That's one of my questions, actually. But I can't imagine that, right? I can't imagine it.
I'm being provocative here, just a little bit intentionally. But no. Why are people fat now? Well, they clearly have their calorie intake and they've eaten enough, but they just keep putting more in them because it's so dang pleasurable to eat.
I don't necessarily. I mean, obviously, the pleasure of eating plays a part of it, but I think it's because people are more sedentary. They're not getting enough exercise, and food is convenient and packed with calories, right? So if you eat your McDonald's meal or whatever, you're getting an entire day's worth of calories in a package that has been presented to you as one meal's worth. And so you're eating that, not thinking about it, and then you're not doing any exercise. And so you're having 3 such meals in a day, potentially. And that's why. If you had a pill, I think a lot of people get fat out of laziness, not because they're determined to be fat, just because they're not really thinking about it. And if you had a bottle of nutrition pills on your counter and you could just eat that and be totally satisfied in terms of your hunger, then the lazy option is to eat those pills, right? And then you wouldn't be fat because it would be exactly what your body needs.
I'm just thinking about the concept of gluttony, and I got to ask some more questions about the pill. So I take the pill, I've got my nutrition, and I am not hungry anymore. It's just a kind of a mysterious. I don't feel full, but I'm not hungry either. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Almost like you've described your keto experience. Just the temptation of a food is subdued. The temptation of food is just, it doesn't have the pull that it did because you're nutritionally there.
Yeah, let's just imagine it okay, it's lunchtime. You take your nutrition pill, and right after lunchtime you feel full. You feel like you've just eaten a meal. And then, gradually that feeling of fullness goes away and you just feel normal, not hungry. And then the next day, around 11 a.m. or whatever, you start to get hungry and, hungry, time for my pill again. That's how your body's rhythm goes.
Yeah. I think, yes, a lot more people will be in better shape. But I think a depressingly fewer amount than we want to say on the surface. You'd be like, oh, we've cured obesity, when really it's down by 5%. And I think it'd be depressingly not that. I'm telling you, I think
I'm
the food
depressed just hearing your prediction.
I really think people just want to sit in front of the TV at night after a hard day's work and shove food in their face hole. I think they really want to do that. And I don't think they're going to magically start working out anymore. And I think the sedentary issue is remains a constant.
Yeah, sedentary obviously remain. This doesn't affect that,
But like,
there's two sides
like,
to the
hey,
equation.
hey, fat people, do you love your potato chips? Do I have a solution for you? What, like, here's a pill and you don't eat chips anymore. No more chips for you. Like, no, the only way to get a fat person not fat is to somehow make chips healthy. And like, they get to the salty taste, they get the crisp, they get the chew, and they get the swallow. It's kind of like, why can't I just bite into cheesecake, chew it, and spit it out and be satisfied? Like, I think there's something just so, like, would you rob someone of that? But I'm also like, it's a paradigm shift for me, because I don't know what it's going to be like how, if it really does remove the power food has over you, then of course, like, why would you just choose to be fat? But
I can't get past that. I mean, I do understand everything you're saying about there being a psychological addiction to eating tasty foods, because, well, it's pleasant to do that. And yeah, there are habits that have been formed. But it's so easy. Like, if you're fat and you don't want to be fat, which I presume most fat people fall into that camp, right? That fat camp.
Yeah. I think yes, 100%.
Then it's easy to just eat the pill and get what you need, and you're not gonna have hunger cravings later, right? Like, this pill serves your needs just fine. You could eat the pill and be totally satisfied in terms of hunger, not in terms of your desire for pleasant taste. But that just seems like maybe that's just my own perception, but that just seems like such an easy hurdle to overcome.
Oh man, and that's why it's going to be, and now we're getting into the negative stuff. So the fat people that remain fat have nothing but more self-loathing, because it's that freaking easy. But sorry, like, I mean, I really think these people, like, you would think just not eating too much food would be easy, but it isn't. And people are self-loathing. People are depressed. People are they look in the mirror and they go, I am uglier than I need to be. I hate myself. And then they keep eating, Bennett.
Sure.
Like, they just how does self-loathing, is it strong enough? Why is this pill?
Because part of the reason why I think people can continue is because, well, counting calories is hard. Companies don't make it necessarily easy. Yeah, some things have labels on them, and that's nice. But even the way they label them is like, 8 ounces is this amount of calories, and you're like, okay, well, how many broccoli heads is in 8 ounces? Like, you don't have it worked out just right, and you can't have it all planned for you easily. And like, when you have a busy day and you're working or whatever, or maybe you're taking care of your family, it's hard to plan out all of that stuff. Well, now with a pill, you just take one. Like, there's no planning involved. You don't have to count your calories or anything. You just take your one pill and you've got all you need. And so it eliminates all of that uncertainty. And so that just, to me, that makes it unavoidably easy. Like, if you're fat and don't want to be fat, this is all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. And if you're still fat after that, I don't know what to say.
That's the thing. That's why I'm actually kind of upset with this thought experiment, because I hope I'm wrong. I mean, you're making a compelling. It's so easy, and that's actually what's making it so upsetting. Is that I agree with you, and I just think.
So let's step back. Let's step back to another path for just a second, and maybe try to bring it around to another way we can encourage our future hypothetical fat people to not stay fat. So I asked what happens to restaurants, and if even 30% of people start supplementing their diet with this nutritional pill instead of eating out, which I think is a fair number, if not more than that, the restaurant industry tanks significantly, right? Yeah. Like, you're not going to have, I mean, McDonald's will still be around, but there's not going to be as many McDonald's. And, especially even more so for, your luxury restaurants that aren't like super luxury, but are just kind of like your local sushi place or something.
Right.
That's going out of business, right? Because who's going to pay $40 for their sushi meal when they could have a 4-cent pill? And if you're going to go for a special occasion, and do your once a month meal or once a week meal or something, then you'll be able to afford more than $40 for your meal. Or maybe the economics just shift so that your sushi place stays in business, but they up their prices so that you're paying $100 for your sushi meal instead.
Yeah, gosh, yeah. I mean I've heard it put this way that people want somewhere to spend their leisure time, or do you say leisure? Whatever. I think
I like leisure.
I do too. Leisure sounds pretentious to me.
Leisure sounds British.
So leisure time, we need somewhere to spend and just hang out, and I feel like it's evolved like from the past to the present, and it's not your libraries, it's not your barber shops anymore. It's become restaurants. It's weirdly. I mean, why do people go out to have an experience, or they go out to eat? I mean, they're not necessarily. You're not buying it.
No, I mean, do people socialize at restaurants? Yes, but I don't think that's the main place people socialize is restaurants.
I don't think people go to restaurants that much for the food. Is my point. I mean, it is
that's a preposterous statement.
I mean,
I don't think people go to restaurants that much for the food. Like that's what they're for.
That's really highlighting our difference, like fundamentally, is like why you're like, oh my God, restaurants are wildly overpriced, and I'm like, oh, I love the lamps on the wall, like, you know. I know, but I'm saying people go for an experience. They're with their friends, and they don't want to just like stay in. They want to go out. But like, what are they doing when they're out? They're nothing different, right? Like, why are they going out? They're eating food that they could eat food at home for cheaper. They get this feeling of an experience, and so I'm just saying now, like, likely that we've removed this experience, and now there's a hole where they want to go out now, and they were primarily going to restaurants. So now restaurants, because of this pill, have taken a hit. So there's this space that needs to be filled, and I don't know what would emerge. So I think unpredictably some spaces of social poetry gatherings readings would emerge. I don't know. I don't know. What if weird effects happen? Like, okay,
what if people still went to restaurants? They just didn't order food. They just went and sat in a booth and admired the lamps, and like that's just kind of what they did. Well, you would still do that, presumably, right? Since you don't need the food anymore.
Imagine something like this. Yeah, so people want to go to those spaces, and they like the idea of being waited on. So at first there's alcohol intake, it skyrockets, but like that's just untenable. Like, alcohol is unhealthy. So then things like vaping are weird. You know, it's a little more nebulous. The health effects start. Like, so these hookah and things like that. I really think something like
people would go get hookahs a lot.
Order a bunch of hookahs to get satisfied. You know,
right? Go to the hookah place on the corner.
I think you're going to have newly emerged social spaces that involve some sort of transaction and being waited or being served.
Hopscotch. People play a lot of hopscotch.
I maybe.
You never know.
I also think this too. I also think this is kind of another take on it, I guess. So like productivity, like businesses want you to be productive, and it's in their best interest. And now all of a sudden, I don't need a lunch break, but I might need a mental break.
You're hitting all my points,
so
man.
I don't know what happens, but I feel like people pretty quickly would say, I need a break during the day. Even I can't just freaking work all the way through. I need a break. And so businesses might get creative on how they do that, or they don't do it, and the productivity goes up briefly, but then like some mental health takes a hit. I don't know, but there's something to do with your work day that's going to be impacted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought about that too. Productivity, would it be affected? I was thinking about the mental health aspects as well. I know mental health is kind of a buzz topic. I guess you would say people have to talk about it for better or worse. But I was thinking about it in terms of the workday. Like you say, it would be, if you could just take a nutritional pill in a matter of seconds, then there's no reason for you to have an hour-long lunch break. And it would, I would see companies start to say, okay, well, you know how they offer 15-minute smoke breaks in some places.
Yeah.
I mean, there would be no justification for keeping it to be an hour long if you don't actually have to eat a meal. And so they would definitely reduce it. And that could up productivity but increase stress. But then also, I thought too, eating together is a social experience. So this kind of goes to what you're saying. I wasn't thinking about it in terms of restaurants in particular, but breaking bread with your fellow man is a historical thing. Like that's what you do to bond and to develop some degree of intimacy.
Right.
And that, maybe it won't go away totally, but it certainly, the impact of that is lessened. And I wonder if the loss of that social activity could have a big impact on families, for example. You're not getting around the dinner table to eat in the evenings with your family. Instead, you're just taking your pill when you're at school for the day, and you come home and that's it. So that's one of the potential detrimental effects that I thought of.
Yes, because that's when you talk about your day. It's a bizarre thought to say everyone gather around the table and, I mean, you can do things like let's play a family. Like, why do people play games? And I mean, there's inherent competition and strategy built within, but like, it's all about coming together, and then out of that, friendships arise, connections are made. You share things about each other. So yeah, like when and this just has to happen. You gotta eat. Might as well do it together, kind of thing.
Sure.
And there's something a little vulnerable slightly about eating. I mean, it's not the most attractive thing to move your jaw up and down as you masticate. Is that
Yeah, that's it. That's definitely it. That's it.
Okay. And
Phew. It's keeping my finger on the mute button.
and ingest this food. So it's just because you have to let down. You're definitely not. While you're eating, you're not fighting, I guess. And so that's why it's sort of intimate. When you break bread with someone, you're saying we're not going to war, we're building something. We're not deconstructing, we're constructing.
Right.
And so, yeah, the need for that and the sharing your day moment and the family gathered around the something table, not a dinner table
the pill
anymore.
table. Well, I guess this isn't as relevant anymore, but, traditionally, the man goes and works and brings home the money, and the woman is the homemaker kind of thing in your traditional gender roles of yore. And
Yep.
part of that role was preparing dinner. And that's a big thing, right? People take a lot of pride in their culinary expertise and the ability to prepare food for a family. And, potentially that goes away, or at least is greatly lessened. And that could be another hit.
That's what I'm curious about. Would it lessen it or would it enhance it? Because now a lot less. Well, I guess it's both, because less people are cooking. So when you do cook, it is extra special. And if you're a good cook and you make,
even if they want to keep doing it, grocery stores are going to disappear. Not totally, but they're going to become specialty shops. Like your butcher shop is. Like that's a specialty shop. You're not going to have a ton of restaurants and all that. And this kind of circles back around to the fat people thing. Like fat people, in some sense, it's going to get a lot harder for them, even if they don't want to have the pill, even if they want to keep eating their ice cream. It's going to be harder to get ice cream because so many people are going to supplement. They're going to get rid of ice cream for their pill.
What a little like boutique shops in downtown areas with cool restaurants and
they changed to lamp shops or poetry shops,
cupcake shops,
lamp shops and poetry shops. That's what they're gonna. They have no other option. There's no other market now. All the people who wanted food now want poetry and lamps.
Wait, did they exist? I love sitting in a booth at a restaurant. Like, what's the reason for booths anymore? Like, this is so sad.
Here's a thought too, like just the agriculture industry is gonna, globally, economically, that's gonna be a huge change because now we need far less farmland for both, corn and whatnot for our own consumption or for farm animals consumption. Like what happens to cows? A
lot fewer cows. Yeah,
we don't need cows as much, not nearly as much. Pigs, chickens, all that. We don't need all of that for our consumption anymore. So what? Do they become pets? What happens to all the millions of cows that exist? Right?
Well, yeah, I don't think they aggressively breed them the way. So I think they just kind of we wean down the population, I guess, and that might be have some good environmental effects, and maybe that also brings up some land. We can be spread out a little, like cities.
Yeah, like all the
Could be laid out
farmers.
a little differently.
Your farmers have a huge amount of farmland, and then they would just be sitting on.
It's profitable, nice land.
Yeah,
beautiful
nice,
land.
nice
Let's just
land.
build a city there. um, yeah,
I mean,
man,
does it? It would simply the development of this pill, like, reduce, like, would it fundamentally change cities, like the way people congregate in cities? I don't quite think so, but I mean, maybe a little.
Well, it's weird to think that because of this pill, new cities may emerge, and then how you construct downtown areas. Because I still think people are attracted to areas like that to go shopping and still wanting some sort of experience, some leisurely experiences. So you might see an influx in things like putt putt or like just getting more inventive. You know how they're kind of doing that anyway, like axe throwing and just different.
I mean, think about the world
things
where you can work from home remotely. You don't have to go to restaurants because you can take your nutrition pill, and Amazon can deliver anything that you need to shop for.
We're on the verge of VR. I know we're kind of far off, but I'm saying like this is becoming an option. You can sit in that chair and do the whole.
Truly, like the use for cities. I mean, we could just spread out a lot more. It seems like it seems like we're moving to a very where technology is allowing for a much more rural or suburban way of life instead of a city-based life. Like, I wonder culturally, broadly, if that's where we're moving. This is. I mean, the trends don't indicate that. As far as I'm aware, cities are still growing and rural areas are still shrinking, and increasingly so. But technologically, you can see a path where that may not be the case going forward.
Yeah, it's just I still think about like why do people want to live in the cities? Well, I enjoy big city amenities. I like the idea of if I want to go to a rock climbing gym type place, there's two of them, here, and I can like go in and be in awe about the structure and all these people climbing rock walls and stuff. And
yeah, but what if like it probably takes you 30 minutes to drive to the rock climb place.
Yeah.
Especially if there's traffic.
Yeah.
But if everything was spread out, then you would have, less traffic, and it still might be the same distance with less congestion. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe
you're right. Yeah. Could be, especially if you got self-driving cars, then that like traffic becomes obsolete, and so it can really zip over there. And I mean, we're really on the cusp of when everything you outlined, and then you fold in self-driving cars and VR. It's just like, man, we're on the brink of, and then AI has been so the explosion of that too. So it's just like, wow, we haven't sorted it out, and it's not working yet, but like we're so close to something big, this automated world in which we just live in our self-contained kingdoms. But that's the thing. Isn't that weird that the trend seems to be like people want to go be near each other to have some sincere experiences, and like even though we can reach each other digitally, we seem to have this desire to get like is it a pathetic attempt to achieve intimacy, thinking that moving to a big city is going to do it, that it's a substitute for getting closer to one, like maybe if I get physically in proximity to lots of other people and other amenities.
I don't know. I can't identify with that, so I don't know. I just don't. I don't know what to think about that. Like, you say it's a trend. Is it a trend?
Well, you were just saying dwindling.
Well, I mean, yeah, cities are growing, but I don't know if the reason is because people want to be around people. I think it's because of convenience and cost, and all of that stuff.
And just sort of these models that are like, oh, the best way to educate kids, or the most cost-effective, I should say, way is to build mega schools, stuff like that. You're right, that like megalopolises is like kind of a.
I mean, my impression, I guess this could differ. moving to a big city is dehumanizing, not humanizing. Like, you feel like a small number. You don't feel like an important part of your community. You just feel like one of the multitude. And so if I was wanting to move somewhere to feel, more socially connected or important, I wouldn't move to a big city.
That bears out in like how like let's take a typical New Yorker treating, because they have to deal with thousands of people
about
they
it.
navigate. They just
Forget
they
about
ignore
it.
each other.
That's all they say.
Well, if you're in some
Forget about
rural
it.
place, yeah, you're right. You nailed it.
I've never been to
Captured
New
their
York.
essence perfectly. They eat Sbarros all the time.
Yeah.
But like they have to navigate thousands and thousands of people, and they don't. It's not like they're greeting or looking at each other. But like you're in some rural place and you walk past someone like, well, how you doing? It's like exciting to see another person. Oh, there's a person. Let's see what they're up to. And there's just like a friendliness or an eagerness or a curiosity that is just absolutely vacant for a
Yeah.
Because people are just in your way in this city. And so that does bear out. I mean, I think you're totally right. I just think there's something ironic about like people will acknowledge that, but even myself, I mean, I'm giving this thought live right here, right now. I'm going, I want to live in a city because there's just lots of people to connect with. There's lots of things to do, unique opportunities. It feels lively, the hustle and bustle, the flow, the things going on. Like you're part of it. You're part of something big. But I guess that's not quite the same as like that doesn't. In fact, it's less intimate, or you're less likely to get plugged into I mean, they're just. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've got a final question for you. In the world with readily accessible, cheap nutrition pills, what happens to vegans? Do they get more obnoxious or less obnoxious?
Would vegans just have to be? Do they have to just shut up because they're taking the pill? It's the best thing for the environment and mostly for themselves too. And they eat I think they just have to now shut up and they're not interesting anymore, or like they don't. Their claim to being interesting is removed.
Yeah. But just
it.
because they don't have a claim to be interesting doesn't mean that they're not still obnoxious. Like, I wonder, like they could take the pill and shut up, and that would be great for everyone. But I feel like
they won't.
They
They'll
won't.
find something else.
They'll transition from being vegans to anti-pillars, and they'll be like, "This is
totally right.
unnatural. The pill's unnatural. We're eating our farm-sourced ferns or whatever," and that's what they'll eat, and they'll never shut up about it.
It's vegans are just basically religious zealots, and that's the frustration, right? Is that they're like cult members, and it's just like, oh, we get it, you found the truth, but no one really thinks that, and we all kind of know they're weird. And so you're right, remove that. They leave the cult, but the cult hasn't left them. Their inner, it's their idea of
that's
like
a good way of putting
to
it.
have the information. Yeah, they have some insight you don't. So they're just sort of like cultists or conspiracy theorists, or this access to privileged information, that the allure of that is just not removed. So they'll just subvert that, or they'll take that energy and they'll direct it somewhere else, whether it's anti-pill or like just joining an actual cult, So
yeah, maybe the
screw
advent
vegans.
of the nutrition pill really bolsters cult membership.
That's the only thing. Cults crop up everywhere. Very weird.
That's all.
That's all. Okay. Goodbye.
Dun-dun,
Doop, doop,
dun-dun,
doop,
dun.
doop. Bye.